Welcome to your midweek edition of the Life Given podcast. I believe this is episode 26. As you can probably tell by the video footage, we are still working on getting an adjusted setup, but the show must go on, right? And on that front, we are now on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. So if that is your preferred platform, go over there and look us up, because the Life Given podcast is now there, and that's been honestly in the works since the beginning of the podcast, and finally found a way through. Shout out to Podpoint, which is a podcast that enables Christian ministries and Christian content to create podcasts, and I was able to get my podcast on there, and then from there onto iTunes. So shout out to them, and I'll link to both of those in the description. But today, I just kind of wanted to discuss and show you probably something that you've seen in your news feed, but also most likely not. We are currently, the majority of my listeners to this podcast probably aren't sports enthusiasts, one might say, because this falls in that category. Don't worry, for those of you who aren't sports enthusiasts, you will, I think this just kind of goes to show you the craziness of our age, and the logic that people have swallowed almost without second thoughts. And the clip that I want to look at with you is from I believe, ESPN broadcaster, ESPN sports analyst. His name is Stephen A. Smith. He is very successful at his job. He has landed multiple big gigs. He's known for his rants, for sometimes his reason, and he can be very, very vocal about what he believes in. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement has not been an exception to that rule. Recently, the Brooklyn Nets, an NBA team, hired Steve Nash. And now, if you don't know who Steve Nash is, I'll give you a bit of his background, because that's very, very important before you watch this video. Steve Nash is a back-to-back MVP in the NBA, or was. So most valuable player, he was at the top of his position, at the point guard position, for 2 years. And he was still a phenomenal point guard, even the years that he didn't win the most valuable player award. He also he led the league in assists. He was just a legendary point guard. He recently got hired to be the head coach for the Brooklyn Nets. And Steve Nash also happens to be white. Now, in the background that I just gave you of him, what do you think is most important when hiring a basketball coach? Also, as a very important point, the people that brought him in asked and made sure, with the two superstars there are two very great basketball players on the Brooklyn Nets. They asked them what they thought about this hire, and they gave him the thumbs up. Steve Nash has worked personally with these two men, and these two men, two of the best players in the league right now in basketball, okayed it, gave it the thumbs up. These men happen to be African American. They happen to be black. Now, what's important about all the information that I gave you? What's the most important and valuable piece of information? Is it their color? Is it the color of their skin? Stephen A. Smith seems to think so. Let's watch the clip. He has this rant directly after he finds out about the hire, and he goes off. And we are going to just talk about it and kind of have a reaction to it. Here you go.
Hired a new head coach, and it's Hall of Fame point guard Steve Nash. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting this news. It's a 4-year deal for Nash. Interim coach Jacques Vaughn will stay on as an assistant. Here's part of GM Sean Mark's statement, quote, "In Steve, we see a leader, communicator, and mentor who will garner the respect of our players." Stephen A., talk to me.
Max Kellerman, Molly, this is one of the toughest positions that I've ever had to take in my career on First Take. And here is why. I want to first state that Steve Nash has no coaching experience, but if you talk about an outlier, an individual that is just special on so many levels, it is Steve Nash. Not just as a player, but his mentorship to some degree with Steph Curry. The brothers that he has looked out for and supported when Quentin Richardson was his teammate, and he took money off his plate to make sure Quentin Richardson got paid. When he had his man Steven Jackson, his former teammate, his teammate at the time, living with him and took him in and looked out for him. The respect that he has around the league, his smarts, his intelligence, his basketball IQ. Steve Nash is a sensational dude. And if anybody deserves this opportunity, absent the experience that obviously he has as a coach, it is him. It happened for Steve Kerr, who had never coached on any level before, but he took over Golden State, and look at the job that he's done. Steve Nash is widely respected and loved by a whole bunch of people in the NBA, black, white, and beyond. Congratulations to him. He deserves it. I get it. But this ain't about him, what I'm about to say. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no way around this. This is white privilege. This does not happen for a black man. No experience whatsoever on any level as a coach, and you get the Brooklyn Nets job. I know that Kyrie and KD have both signed off on this. I know they both support this move. But I'm thinking about a champion that is Ty Lue, passed up. I'm thinking about a guy who built the foundation for the Golden State Warriors in Mark Jackson, passed up. I'm thinking about the years that Sam Cassell has served as an assistant, first in the nation's capital in D.C., and now with the Los Angeles Clippers, passed up. And it's for a guy, my God, one of the best guys you could possibly meet in your life, and may do a fantastic job, but a guy that has no experience whatsoever. In these times where we're making all of this noise about social justice, I got news for y'all, Molly and Max. I have said this to people on numerous occasions right here on this show. Yes, that was the tipping point. George Floyd's killing, his murder, violence against black men who are unarmed. All of that stuff is true. But the frustration, the protest, and all of these things that you've seen in the streets throughout America, emanating from the black community and disenfranchised communities, is that proverbial glass ceiling. And the fact that it breeds a level of frustration that we can't even put in the words sometimes. You just want to scream to the high heavens. How the hell does this always happen for somebody else other than us? Why is it that we have to be twice as good to get half as much? Why is it that no matter what we do and how hard we work and how we go through the process and the terrain of everything, somehow, some way, there's another excuse to ignore that criteria, to ignore those credentials, and instead bypass it and make an exception to the rule for someone other than us? So I'm depressed right now because I have to bring that up. Because Steve Nash doesn't deserve it. I think Steve Nash is going to do a hell of a job in Brooklyn. I think that he's going to resonate with Kyrie and KD. And not only that, his record in terms of looking out for one brother after another. I love this brother, Steve Nash. He is a beautiful person, and I'm so happy for him just on its face. But when I take into account all that it entails, and I think about the black men that were passed up in Brooklyn, New York City. We got Thibodeau at Madison Square Garden, who's obviously highly respected and deserves it. And now we got Steve Nash, who has no coaching resume, but a lot of people believe in him, and they should. Yet again, we find ourselves looking at a situation as black people. You know what? Everything is egregious as it is to kill an unarmed black man, to shoot him, and things of that nature. There are a multitude of ways where black folks, particularly black men, have been sliced and diced up and thrown out to pasture. And if I'm Sam Cassell, if I'm Ty Lue, if I'm Mark Jackson and these boys, that's how I'm feeling right now when I heard the news that two superstars and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signed off on this man being the new head coach in Brooklyn, I'm sure he's going to do a good job. I know Kyrie and KD ain't going to lose. I'm just saying, damn, as time changes, things remain the same.
Sometimes I'll comment through videos that we watch together. But honestly, I just wanted to see, I just wanted you to be able to listen, watch, do both without any commentating from my end. Because I think sometimes that can kind of get into the way of just organically thinking through what someone says. And, I'm not here to just preach on stuff. I come here to just raise questions. And when I saw this clip, quite a few questions came to mind. For starters, it seems very I think the term is reductionistic. I could be wrong on that, but just reducing it to such to one level. It's very it seems like Stephen A is very laser focused in on one issue, and he's experiencing what is often referred to as tunnel vision, because he's only seen one possible problem with it. Because he mentioned that Steve Nash is an exception to the rule. Normally, you hire someone with experience. Now, there are a list of people out there that have been hired without previous coaching experience. I believe the very successful coach Doc Rivers out there in LA with the Clippers, he was hired without any prior coaching experience. So I've been told. There are players that have been hired without previous coaching experience. And I think that's something to think about when you want to cover it with such a universalistic blanket statement. When you say our people don't get to catch the breaks. First of all, who made you the voice of whatever culture you're speaking for, right? That assumes quite a bit when you can say this confidently, that we never catch a break. And obviously he's referring to what he's talking about, Black America, which I think that's once again, very reductionistic. And zooming in on this actual issue with Steve Nash being hired to be the coach for the Nets, once again, I think that he just focused in on one issue and didn't take into consideration, just like you would with any hire, with anything, whatever job field you're in, whether it's professional sports, whether you're hiring a teacher at a school, any of those things, you take into account the people you're hiring this person to work with. It's not just that one person and that one issue that you think is going to fix for you. Rather, you look at and you go and approach the people that this person is going to be interacting on a day-to-day basis, and you consider, is this person going to be a good fit at our company? That's what the Brooklyn Nets did. They went to their key players and asked, hey, would you mind if we hired Steve Nash, who, even though Stephen A said that he has no experience being a player, a very successful one in the league, and he's studied with some coaching staffs, also known as the Golden State Warriors, you might have heard of them, that can't be slighted on a resume. So all of that being said, I think that my biggest critique, my biggest question for Stephen A is that seems like a very narrow lens that you're interpreting this through, that you're looking at this issue through. Let me know what you think. Reach out to me at thelifegivenandreceived@gmail.com or the Life Given News on Facebook or on podcasts or on Instagram at _TLG podcast _ or on Parler at TLG podcast. Once again, very excited to be joining the Apple podcasting platform. You can now find me there, find this podcast there, and on Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook Watch. It's awesome. It's a bonanza. We are out here just having fun, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. And if you have any feedback, reach out and let me know. It's always great to hear what you guys have to say. Until Friday, remember that the life that you have been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Current events are no exception. God bless.